Thank you guys so much for coming out. I just want to introduce our panelists here. Do you want to start out? Just tell us a little about who you are, what you do, and...
So that's a loaded question. Chanan Averbuch, Chief Experience Officer at BlueSquareX. Really happy to be here with you. Thank you so much. We get to do cool things every single day. We wake up and we go to sleep just thinking about doing really cool, exciting things. And pleasure to be here with the Diversified team. Really, on my end, I get to spend a lot of time with partners and creative end users to help them really bring their vision to life. And then I rely on this guy to make it all happen.
Hi. Hi, I'm Yitzy Shapiro, co-founder, COO of BlueSquareX. Like Chanan said, he dreams it, we dream it up with the client, and then he says, here you go, let's make it happen. And that's what we're here to discuss today.
So as Steve Glancey, I realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm the digital leader at Diversified. So a lot of these projects that we have, some of them are going to be large scale rollouts, and then some of them are going to be on the more experiential side and creating these immersive experiences that people can take with them. And so BlueSquare, they're a great partner for us in helping to make this booth happen. Huge thank you to you guys for that. But we're going to get into the detail that hopefully you guys can take away and be equipped to, as you think about wanting to create these experiences, wanting to use digital and technology to make people feel something, to make people remember something and experience something that they couldn't experience anywhere else. So you guys do that all the time. Chanan, you're more on the vision side. You're more on the operational. How do you actually make that happen? And so I'm going to direct the questions kind of geared towards you guys like that. But one of the things is that when people do these projects, they imagine what it's going to look like on opening day, right? How will it look there and that? Here's my vision. And everything that goes into trying to make that project happen thinks about day one, right? And all of it starts to maybe fall apart potentially after that, if that's all you end up thinking about, right? But you can't just start thinking about day two on day two. So much of it has to be programmed and planned and thought through on the front end. So thinking about trying to create that vision, so I'm gonna start with you. As you're thinking about that vision, what usually gets missed, right? You have this idea, but then as you're going through the process, whiteboards forget this thing. What is that one thing that people don't plan for that you wish people did?
So I truly wish it was just one thing. Start with that. Usually there's a few dozen. But I believe that, I would say content.
I think, Steve, to your point, it's not always day two that's forgotten. Sometimes it's day one. I think it's definitely, the number one thing is absolutely content.
Which is like the opposite if we think back even to how we engage with your team, right? It was everything that we were thinking about even in the booth design, right? It started with understanding what the storytelling is, what's the vision of this space, how is it supposed to make people feel, from the jackpot celebration to the goal celebration, right? Which, by the way, was absolutely epic, I may add. But it's a lot of partners in place, to your point, a lot of manufacturers, a lot of software things, a lot of APIs, a lot of things that have to all work continuously from start to finish, and definitely not just day one, but day two. So I think content is definitely one of those things that are really, really overlooked. And I would gladly say that in 2026, people are starting to finally realize that. And something that really irks me, I saw it today on the show floor, and I think it's important to clarify, is that digital art is not CGI. CGI is not digital art. An LED screen is not an experience. It is only an experience when it's thought through. Content, software, it has to have a vision that is for day one and day two. And the only way to ensure that is really to think about, not just from a budgeting perspective, but how often do you want this to be refreshed? Is it just a seasonal experience? Is it a monthly? Is it a quarterly experience? Because clients don't think enough about that day two experience. They say, I buy all this stuff and you're gonna make it work, right? Yep. Yeah, right? And you're gonna manage it anywhere in the world, right? But then they don't think about how it goes stale 3-6 months down the line.
Right, correct. When you're trying to do a project like this, and you're trying to get the right people in the room to start talking through this, right? Because it's as you have a vision and you're helping that client bring that vision to life, it's not usually just one person. Who are all those people that usually need to be in the room, or how do you go about strategically making sure that all the right people are in the room?
For us, what we find to be most successful is when we have that visionary, our initial conversations, and throughout the project, our team is constantly involved with them, constantly working with them, constantly talking to making sure the vision, the deliverables are on path with what that vision was to be able to execute, and not based on what IT wanted, what the AV people wanted, or construction, because we have a wall that fits exactly a 6 foot by 6 foot, but that's not what the visionary had in mind. And like this, we make sure that we're able to have a successful project.
And if I may add to that, to what Yitzy said, we had a project recently where there was a piece of the content, it was like an inspiration, so to speak. And there was very, very basic brand guidelines involved. And I was involved in just that early call on that process. And then project management and creative on my team took charge because everyone saw clearly what the vision is. And then from there on out, it was more about execution, to Yitzy's point. But there was still, on that content side, that weekly call until it went to print, so to speak, before it went up on the big screen. So what I found is, just to add to what Yitzy said, is that the storytelling, the vision side of it has to be there, but I think that there has to be that handing off of the torch saying, okay, now you're ready, go with it.
Right, and I mean, in my experience too, if you can keep that visionary there and tagged, usually they can help to drive and make sure that vision becomes a reality, right? Because the nature is that ideas are great and plans are great, right? Until the first shot gets fired, right? Yeah, ideas die with IT.
Sorry, IT guys.
But here, can I throw you guys a curveball question? Okay. So curveball question. Great, you got everyone in the room. You have this really great vision. Oftentimes, ideas fall when prices become known, right? Oh, it's going to cost me that much. Right. What are some things that you guys have found helpful, right? As you're having some of these initial conversations, you have this amazing vision. It's really easy for ideas to die and never actually become to reality. What are some helpful things that you guys have found to help drive the project forward in telling that story?
So many people don't know this about me, but my background is actually in finance. And I would tell you that in finance, you always try to understand the pain points and the CapEx related to how to solve that pain. And I learned very early on in my career that price is truly only an issue in absence of value. So for that reason, at least on the BlueSquareX side, we spent a lot of money upfront helping clients visualize what we're even talking about beyond a render, beyond a CAD drawing, beyond a floor plan. Because what we come to realize is just because the guy's building a $50 million house or a new hangar for his airplanes, right, doesn't mean he sees value in spending money on that. The point is that if it's not just communicated in the form of an email or proposal, but if it's visualized, and we've seen this with our team, when we visualize things correctly, there's no misconceptions. This is how we're going to deliver it. You see that? It's epic, right? Great. Sign the dotted line.
Yeah.
I think to add what Chanan's saying is that sometimes when we actually, it's not just a quote, it's not just some numbers, it's not a number pushing game, that we actually define what it is that's going to be delivered, helps the customer understand why there's value, and dealing with a corporate world, we can explain the ROI on the flip side, versus just being, oh, well, just too expensive and we're just going to cancel the project or we're going to go elsewhere.
And naturally what happens, right, is that things need to get value engineered. That's kind of what happens. I like to talk with my engineers sometimes and say, hey, could we do this? the reality is that where is that break-even point to where that value is there? But how do you hold to that in that value engineering process to make sure that that vision becomes a reality?
So I think one of the things that we do is we rely on our teams that have a lot of experience, that it's not a one-off. When experiences and visions are one-off, that you're doing this the first time ever, it's never been done for a client, like the pitch. It helps it helps reduce the initial the cost. There's less value engineering because we've done it before. We've seen the pitfalls. We know where to look at, what to look out for, what to correct, and how to be able to get to market or get to a deliverable that doesn't necessarily have to be value engineered. I mean, Chanan can tell you his conversation about the 6K canvas that he had last week, and I'll let you take that.
Yeah, we've uncovered this time and time again where people look at these beautiful canvases and they don't understand the full picture that goes with it, even when you do a pre-visualization, to your point, right? But I'll tell you one particular instance, very reputable brand, it was with a Faina, okay? Great hospitality brand, huge following online, demanding big numbers for their hotels and their residences, etc. And we got approached by one of our partners to do something that at the time we'd never done before, which was a ceiling mounted LED wall. Okay, not a big deal. You take a TV and you mount it to the ceiling, right? Well, they didn't have the budget, to your point, to do a custom circular LED. The ceiling LED there that we engineered was a square LED, and then we did a cosmetic around it to make it look circular. And in the process, guess what we did? We took a $600,000 solution and made it a $300,000 solution. So I credit our team because when we're faced with those challenges, we're not saying, great, this guy doesn't have the budget, let's move on. We're looking at it from the perspective like, how do we find a way to actually execute despite the budget challenges? And I think if you poke the right conversations, you're able to find a very holistic way of saying, you have engineering chops, we have engineering chops, let's make this happen. And I'll just use a different example that I saw. You and I spoke about this in one of our first conversations with Mercedes, that I remember vividly for a dealership. And you say, oh, Mercedes has a lot of money, a big dealership, right? No, opposite. You know this, right?
Dealerships. I don't know if there's any.
It's on the side. Yeah. And I remember my first Mercedes dealership, they told me that they don't have the budget for 2 walls. I said, I have a crazy idea. Imagine if I take 1 wall and cut it in half. They're like, what do you mean? That doesn't solve the budget problem with only half the budget. I said, hear me out for a second. Let's take half the wall, install it on the left, half the wall, install it on the right, play your 16:9 content that you walk through. They're like, yes. Like, there's half your budget problem.
Yeah, definitely a lot of creative ways and ideas to get around things and even create new experiences that didn't exist before. Just as long as you're staying in that conversation, you keep evolving and ultimately trying to make the clients happy and trying to help justify that. But in that, right, success can be defined differently from project to project, right? And success and how that gets measured is defined by different stakeholders within the organization. So if you're talking to a CMO, they have certain KPIs that they care about. A CFO, they care about other types of KPIs. And then you have your champion, you have the other people within the organization that are trying to accomplish different things even within the same project. And you're trying to make them all happy, right? But how do you measure it? So that might come to you first. How do you measure it? Do you want to start there? What are some ways that you've seen success measured for some of these installations?
Sure. So the first thing, to keep the customer happy, I send them to Chanan. That's step 1.
Then I send it back.
Step 2, in terms of measuring, everybody has their own KPIs. Everybody has their own definition of what's the ROI, and it all depends on what is the environment, what is the ask. I find that with experience, stale content destroys ROIs, destroys anybody's success factor, because that's never the intended the intention of starting the project. It's always that this is going to be something fresh. It's going to be something new. It's always going to engage, whether it's engaging customers, engaging people in the lobby, creating an ambience, or in the Faina example, for instance, attracting people to come in to relax, and then ultimately looking at their other products. It's essentially obviously it needs to be defined by the project, what is the end game, but it always comes back to making sure that it's continuing its purpose and it's continuing to draw an audience, essentially.
And how are you measuring now? Like, what are you seeing different ways to measure that?
There's so many things that are being done today, whether it's going to be QR codes, beacons, to RFI beacons, or different cameras to measure audiences.
I think if I may add to that, like utilizing, for example, the digital twin that we created, even for the pitch, right? Be able to showcase how a CAD drawing, Revit model, and rendering, so to speak, have a baby and create this amazing solution that you could really sell the future today, right? In the form of suites. And it's in reality, that solution is only as good as the back end dashboard. So for example, and you and I haven't spoken about this a lot even, but like learning from where we found a lot of success in real estate. So in the world of real estate, right, somebody can click on an apartment and say, this view of this building is amazing, I want this unit, right? And then you simply click on the button, the little heart that says, I love this. The broker then can go and send it to that particular person with a discrete, unique link. And every time someone clicks on that, you get the metrics. Every time he shares it. So I remember seeing firsthand where the ROI was very easy. The person clicked on the render, and then guess what happened? When he clicked on it, the broker knew this guy's clicked on this thing hundreds of times. He's a real buyer. He's buying this. You don't need to negotiate. I think the same thing holds true in the stadiums and arena place, because if FedEx decision makers, procurement, IT, marketing, whatever it may be, are so interested in that suite on the 200 level, right? And they keep on clicking on that link about the stadium and what this unit's about, and they click and they share and they put on social, you have exactly the metrics you need to convert. So I think, to Yitzy's earlier point, the KPIs will vary depending on the product and services that the clients really honed in and engage with. The way you measure varies depending on the stakeholders actually sitting in that room.
So just to add a little bit, and I think this is where the industry is heading, is obviously AI, the big buzzword of AI. How are we going to use AI to measure? How are we going to use AI to deliver our true KPIs, as well as morphing into this Web 2.0, intersecting with the Web 2.0 world, where we're able to measure every click, we're able to measure every eyeball, every glance on the web page or whatever it is. I think these are tools that are you're starting to see being used in our world, essentially.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of great ideas, suggestions of ways that people are doing it. One of the things that I love to talk about with clients is making sure that you are tying whatever that KPI or that number is to something that's actually meaningful for the business. So in your case, in the example that you gave, you're talking about real estate, right? Or I'm a stadium and I have this vision and I'm trying to sell suites. Otherwise, we don't get the funding in order to build the stadium. Or I'm trying to sell condos, and if I can't sell condos and carry this vision from this little 3D model, we'll make it into this unbelievable immersive experience that allows people to actually be in that room. And now, what does your close rate look like, right? As you get buyers coming in. And that is a clear dollar value. But one of the things I like to say is that either whenever you're doing some sort of investment in digital or AV or things like that, looking at can it either increase your revenue in that example or decrease your costs? So those are two different ways, and maximizing that is obviously the fundamentals of every business, right? So as you guys look at a project, what is one thing that if you could tell an AV integrator or their customer that they should be really thinking about that they aren't thinking about, what would be that one tip that you guys would give?
Wow, I don't think there's just one, probably 100 or 200, but to be honest, I think if the mindset is the one thing it's engaging partners very early in the process. You know, when you and I look at a potential stadium arena that we want to create this massive immersive experience for, right? The first thing we have to ask ourselves is, how much space do you even have available to do that? Because we had a particular brand that came to our office this past week, even while I was under construction, sorry, Yitzy. And when they came to our space to look at everything, they said, how many square feet do we need to accomplish X, Y, Z? I said, let's work a little backwards here. How much square feet do you have even to work with? Once they told me that they had less square footage to work with, we quickly realized some of the portal ideas that you and I spoke about, right? And realized that, wow, I can create a killer experience with a fraction of the footprint, and all of a sudden my square footage that I thought I needed to rent out or to buy real estate for, I only need this much. So now the cost of the technology is actually less than initially anticipated. So the real answer is planning early with the right partners who actually know how to execute on the integration side, on the technology side, on the vision and the storyboarding. If you plan correctly with people that have experience in delivering, then the reality is you truly, I believe, can make any budget work. You can make any type of real estate limitations work, but it's coming down to bringing in the right partners early. That will ultimately create the highest level of cost savings moving forward.
Well, cost savings, maybe a better way to term it, just pushing back on you a little bit, right? Let's have a little bit of this, would be to say the best value, right? Like for example, with your circle on the ceiling idea, right? And hey, let's just cut it out, cover up the sides. Like things like that can be identified as ideas when you have a backlog of 20 years, 30 years experience for like everyone on your team that you're bringing into the table. So that's absolutely it, is like, hey, get the smartest people you know in the room, let your ideas and your vision get thrown up on the board, and let us come up with ideas and solutions or different ways to go about solving that idea, that problem, in a way that can help make that cost effective. But yeah, if you get brought in at the end, it's like, hey, we just need some content. It's hard to help bring maybe all those skills to the table. Anything you wanted to? What would be your one suggestion?
Sorry,
yeah. One suggestion, just one.
My one suggestion, I think you guys have been speaking about it, is get in early on with all the right partners. Make sure the vision is understood. Make sure there's an execution plan, not an afterthought. If a project is an afterthought, it's always going to be an afterthought, and the results are going to be an afterthought. Versus getting in early, it will allow the conversation to be driven in the right way, and also actually reduce cost. Yep. Ultimately.
Do I get one too? Can I just have one? No. I want one more. The word or the phrasing that we like to use at Diversified is looking at it more as a program and not as a project, right? If you're looking at something like a project, that's where you fall into that day one, that's it, right? It's only so much value on day one, right? Most of the value comes over the course of the life cycle of the entire program. You need to think about your supportability. You need to think about your ability to create and update that content. You need to think about all the different stakeholders that might want to use that screen. Oh, actually, we want to do a live presentation on that screen sometimes. Oh, that wasn't a part of how we designed the system, right? So when you look at it as a program and you have the right partners there, I think it can be much more successful overall.
It's quite refreshing to hear that it's not a one and done and we walk away.
Yeah. That's not how Diversified does things, or how we want to be doing things.
Well, also to your case, you're also very blessed that you have so many subject matter experts, right? Some of these guys I remember seeing here in the booth, that I remember seeing him when he was at NBC. I remember seeing this guy when he was, like, so many of your subject matter experts on your team. So like guys like Dwayne, right? They have so many years of decades of experience. Guys like Adam, right? So you know very well that if you have a stadium project, you have subject matter experts. You know that if you have an enterprise level client like a MasterCard, you have the exact talent with an Adam and certain people on your team that you can go and plug in there, right? It's the same thing that we've seen on our side. And this is something that, thank God, Yitzy and I together have always spoken about this with BlueSquareX, is when we don't know something, we also bring in a subject matter expert, right? We're very blessed to have some amazingly talented people on our team that if we have an information gap or a knowledge gap, we bring someone else. And that's how we built our entire team, and I would expect nothing less on the client side.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're just about done and wrapping up.
2 hours or so.
I like you, but I don't know if I want to take that. That's great. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there were any questions that anyone had. All right, we're going to wrap up. I think we are out of time here. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming and all you did for this booth and your partnership thus far. We're looking forward to doing a lot of projects together. So thank you.